What's up? What's up? What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Vanguard live stream. Got a great show for you guys today, as always. Lots of interesting topics today. Super excited to react to this Slavoj Zizek appearance on Brown and Joy Gray's Bad Faith podcast. As always, amazing interview with one of the more interesting and eccentric, lefties out there in Zizek. So super excited for that. Also super excited to talk about this Premia Jayapal interview. Totally crazy, and I think a lot of people are starting to question her leadership as the head of the progressive caucus in Congress. So, yeah, a lot of juicy shit to talk about today. Super excited. We also have a big announcement that we'll make here shortly. So super excited for all that. Thanks for everyone tuning into the stream today. Make sure to hit that like button if you just got here. Make sure to hit that subscribe button just in case you're not already, and that notification bell so you don't miss our live streams. But yeah, how you doing, Zach?
Doing pretty good. Yeah, a lot of fucking crazy shit to talk about. I mean, we're gonna get into the Jayapal shit. That's kind of a where has everybody else been? We've been here already. We've been talking about how she's kind of been unfit to lead the progressive caucus for a long time now. For a whole number of reasons that we'll get into later on in the show. But always interesting to react to a good Zizek interview. Honestly, I was a little surprised to see that his take came across this way, that this was kind of where he's at now. To be honest, it seems like everybody's really battling a bad case of doomerism at this point. Everybody is so lethargic and beaten down and fucking broken and in shambles that, not even Zizek is feeling particularly spicy at the moment, but the Vanguard's feeling particularly spicy at the moment. We like to keep it fucking lively here. We're still young. We still have spirit. It's not looking good. We won't bullshit you, but we've got fight left in us. So we have a whole show to do and a fucking super exciting announcement at the end. So let's get to it. I guess we also have to shout out our patrons, the people that make our world go around, our comrades and Vanguardians, and everybody in the comments section. What's up?
Yeah, thanks so much to the patrons. Big shout out to our patron community. As always, we do like to begin and end our lives with a big shout out to the patron community. What?
Oh, you said end our lives with a shout out to the
I meant live
community.
streams. You know what I'm saying, bro? End our lives. Yeah. Thanks so much, guys. Thanks so much. Yeah, anyway, big shout out to the patron community. You guys do make what we do possible. And if you are watching the show and enjoy our content, it does, take more work than it might seem to produce the show. And it really does help the fact that we have our patron army supporting us behind the scenes. So yeah, huge shout out to our patrons.
Round of applause for the patrons.
Hey. Yeah, now we have sound effects too. So get ready for lots of fun, guys. This show is about to get to a whole new fucking level. Got a sound effect board, lots of exciting shit in Vanguard news. So yeah, as Zach said, stay around to the end of this live stream. You're going to want to, because we do have an extremely special and exciting announcement for you guys that you're going to want to hear as we announce it live. So again, make sure to stick around until the end of this live stream for that announcement. And I did realize that I accidentally pulled up the wrong patron board. I forgot to pull up the comrades. So let me pull that up real quick and shout out the comrades. But yeah, we do like to shout or start and end our live stream with a patron shout out, as I said. And if you want to be on that board, you can hit up that link in the description below. Throws a couple bucks per month, help support the show. Really genuinely appreciate that. Support independent media, all that good shit. But yeah, thanks so much, guys, for the support. Really means a lot. And yeah, I guess we can just bull right into today's news. Like I said, we got some good stuff. Particularly excited to talk about this Jayapal interview. Do you think we should perhaps start with that, Zach?
Yeah, I think we should go ahead and cue that one up, Gavin.
Loving the soundboard so far. Yeah, let's get right into this. Zizek, Slav, or not? That's not what we're going to start with. Sorry, my mind is all over the place. Jayapal recently has been making the rounds, doing some interviews. We can take a listen to this one in particular on Mehdi Hassan's show. But surprisingly, she's kind of united the left against all odds against her. People around the leftist spectrum are calling out Premia Jayapal as Build Back Better has essentially died now at the hands of Joe Manchin, who even after remaking this bill to his own liking, stripping everything he didn't want from it, influencing the direction it was going, basically masterminding the whole bill. Even after all that is said and done, he's still like, nah, I don't think I'm actually going to end up voting for this thing. I'm actually not going to, give you guys a W. I'm going to hold out, even though you already gutted it specifically for me. So total insanity. But a lot of people have been pointing to the Progressive Caucus and how miserable and ineffectual their strategy has been this entire way, all along the way.
Those people being the Vanguard.
Yeah, those people being the Vanguard and others. But now it's really just hard to deny because, the progressives have been had. They've been fooled. They've been sold up a river. And let's take a look at Jayapal's response here. Let me pull this up and we can hear Mehdi Hassan, who, does a pretty decent job, all things considered, over at his show on Peacock, questioning folks like Jayapal, holding them to account. So let's take a look here. I thought this was pretty fascinating. And then we'll get into some of the reactions because, like I said, people across the spectrum on the left are calling out Jayapal, turning on Jayapal, demanding that she resign from her chair or resign from her position as chair of the CPC, as it says here in this tweet. So, yeah, without further ado, let's take a look. This is pretty insane.
How do you feel about that today? Do you feel that Joe Biden let you down? And do you feel you got played by Joe Manchin?
No and no. We are, for the weeks and the days going up to the vote in the House, everybody, every day, if I had counted, if I got a penny for every time somebody said to me, this is not going to happen. You all have given up everything. We got it done in the House. Now, I am in the same place in saying that we are getting grenades rolled at us all the time. We have to pick them up. We have to put the pin back in, and we have to continue to focus on the fact that this is going to be rocky. We can't hang our commitments and our hopes on the words of one senator or two senators. We have to continue to work to get it done, and the vast majority of it is done. And so I was on the phone with Senator Schumer today, with the White House, and I believe we will still get it done. It's going to be rocky, and we just have to continue to leave no space in the commitment to getting it done. And listen, the president's word is on the line here, and I do still believe that he is going to do what he told me and what he told our caucus and what he told the country he would do. Had we not done what we have done, though,
and if he doesn't, Congresswoman,
what was that?
And if he doesn't?
No, we're going to do it. We're going to do it. It will hurt everybody.
Just to be clear, you're going to pass Build Back Better by December the 31st.
We are going to pass Build Back Better. I hope it is by December 31st. I think it will be. But we are going to get it done, and we are going to get it done very, very quickly. Almost everything is done, thanks to the Progressive Caucus holding the line.
There's no evidence that Joe Manchin is going to vote for it. We just have reporting today that says that he spoke to Joe Biden on the phone, and they are far apart. Where is your optimism coming from? Because a lot of people are looking and saying, Joe Manchin played all of you.
Well, I think, if you want to give him that credit now, you certainly can, but I don't know why you would. It hasn't been done. It's not finished. And we're going to get it done. And I think that people react to reporting. There's reporting all the time. And we know that Senator Manchin has not been the number one supporter of the Build Back Better Act, but he made a commitment to the president. The president made a commitment to us, and I believe we're going to get it done. So I think that there's, it's hard because we get this reporting all the time. Things go up and down in a negotiation. I feel like I'm in deja vu because I had to say this over and over again. When people told us that we weren't going to get it through the House, and we got it through the House, and we got it through the House with every single, all except one Democrat voting for it, which, let me tell you, Mehdi, would not have happened had we not crafted the deal that we crafted, had the Progressive Caucus not been as strong as we were. So give us.
I don't think anyone's questioning. I don't think anyone's questioning your achievements in the House. We're talking about the Senate, where you don't control Joe Manchin. That's the problem. Joe Biden doesn't control Joe Manchin, and the leverage that you had, your critics would argue, was lost when you voted for Biff. I just wonder, do you regret?
Just a quick interjection. Thanks so much for the super chat, Ramian, for the $20. Really genuinely appreciate that, man. Hopefully this will buy me time off in the gulag someday. LOL. Well, thanks so much for the super chat, man. Really, really appreciate that in the comment. So glad you're enjoying the show. So glad you're watching. And also thank you, Das Bozo Fleisch, for the $4.99. With the current usage level, the soundboard will disintegrate from wear and tear in about 3 days, possibly.
Yeah, I'm digging the soundboard, obviously, as you guys can tell. And Ramya, it's funny. None of us are safe from the gulag. I actually sent Gavin this meme the other day, and it was like me looking at the liberal shit I posted in 2014, like gulag for you. Yeah, yeah, we're all getting the gulag now. But also just to quickly butt in on Pramila Jayapal, we'll finish this whatever last second I think that's on this. But before we do, holy shit, could you imagine being so like in the pocket of the establishment and like she is completely gone. She is completely gone. This is what we call simping for the man in the grandest possible way. She's going to be telling us all the way up until the midterms that, we Build Back Better is just over the horizon. Once we get over the midterms, then we'll really have the support we need, just how we had a stronger, majority in the House. And that's how we were able to get Build Back Better passed it in the House. That's what we need to do with the Senate. And it's like, wait, you already have the majority in the Senate. You're not going to have it after the midterms. But anyway, other thing, shout out to Mehdi Hasan for not letting her fucking wriggle out of this at all. Fucking based.
Yeah, 100%. Mehdi Hasan's doing an amazing job here, by the way. Complete credit to him where it's due. And yeah, I'd almost feel more like comfortable with this answer. I'd almost feel better about Jayapal's answer if she was just being honest about the situation and being like, yeah, this isn't going how we hoped it would. We're trying our hardest, but this is bullshit, and we're up against a lot, guys. And we're trying our hardest to get some help for the American people. This is not what we hoped would happen. I admit that this has not been a perfect performance strategy wise thus far. I would almost feel a little bit better if she was just a little bit honest. But as it is, she's just fucking bullshitting us. Like, we know what's going on. We know this bill isn't going to get passed, and even if it does, it's going to be even more emasculated, even more stripped down of anything decent. It's just going to be a massive handout to the corporations and to the privatizing forces. So why are you fucking lying to us, Pramila Jayapal? I thought you were like with us. I thought you were part of the left in Congress. Apparently not. You sound like you sound like Jen Psaki right now. You sound like the fucking press secretary for Joe Biden, defending this bill, defending the lack of an ability of the Progressive Caucus to get anything done, completely giving away the farm to Joe Manchin just to allow him to play you anyway. This is totally insane, and yeah, it's absolutely gaslighting. It's fucking crazy, man.
Yeah, and not only that, she's doing it a second time. She's still acting like this. This was the same day, I believe, if not the day after. He went on Fox fucking News to take a huge shit in Joe Biden's cornflakes right in the morning and say, hey man, I am going into the lion's den for the Democratic Party. I'm looking at all of them and I'm saying, praise me while I take a shit on the leadership in this party. And I'm going to show them what a cucked piece of shit you are. You won't do a goddamn thing. You're going to call me on the phone, tell me I'm a good friend, tell me that I am, upholding these, balanced budget values or whatever kind of horse shit they're going to peddle to make, how Nancy Pelosi always loves to come out and say, we need a strong Republican Party. They're going to be like, we need a strong middle line in the Democratic Party and all this kind of shit. And that's exactly what Pramila Jayapal is doing. So am I supposed to assume that Pramila Jayapal is now a Joe Biden Democrat, an Biden-Obama Democrat? You know what I mean? It's fucking obvious that that's what she's become. And when you have a guy like Mehdi Hasan, who obviously we've voiced our opinions, and disagreements on in the past, credit where credit's due. He holds her to the fucking flames on this shit. He's also we didn't get a chance to cover it. He's like the only host on MSNBC at all that said anything about Julian Assange and how it's completely crazy. I think he's one of the only mainstream voices, period, on Peacock, CNBC, CNN, any of them, to passionately be like, hey, I don't care what you think about Julian Assange. This is serious. So shout out to him. For that as well. But yeah, I mean, look, we've been saying this for a while, ever since Pramila Jayapal didn't want to endorse whole Washington. She's been playing the establishment game, and I think
she endorsed Joe Kennedy over Ed Markey.
Yeah, what a fucking strike against you there. I mean, it's kind of like those revelations, right? When you see who somebody's real priorities are. It's kind of like when Elizabeth Warren endorsed John Frackenlooper in the Colorado race. You know what I mean? That shit is on your record forever. And it's like, oh, you're not serious about climate change. Sorry, I understand that now. Anyway, Pramila Jayapal is not serious. She should not be the leader of the Progressive Caucus. And honestly, the fact that she is should have been the first red flag to you that she's not serious, because they would never want a serious progressive leading the Progressive Caucus. Otherwise, they just want us gumming at them with no teeth. And that's exactly what she'll provide. She's going to just provide that, hopium, for the masses, even though it's Christmas time and nobody has any fucking money and people are about to get kicked out of their homes and it's winter and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, 100%. And shout out Hysteric Raider for the $5. Really appreciate that. Jayapal must make a good amount of money as a dealer since she loves peddling that hopium. Yeah, that is very accurate, Hysteric Raider. What's the quote from Hedges about the optimism?
Oh yeah, I don't share this generation's optimism for hope.
Yeah. Well, you're absolutely right. Jayapal is an expert in dealing in that very false hope, and also just straight up gaslighting, being like, what you see happening right now is not actually happening. We actually do have a strategy, even though we very clearly don't. We actually are going to get this thing passed, even though we're very clearly not. Everything is all right, even though everything is very clearly not all right, et cetera, et cetera. That's basically what she does now. Instead of just being honest and analyzing the situation and not making her constituents and followers feel fucking crazy for seeing the situation as it is and not as she is describing it here. So yeah, absolutely. Thank you for the $5, Hysteric Raider. And thank you also, Matt Ocelot God, for the $5. Good afternoon, fellas. Just wanted to say that you and RBN are my twin faves on YouTube in 2021. Well, thank you so much, Matt Ocelot. So glad to always see you in the chat. Love your comments and so glad that you're enjoying the Vanguard as well. Are you familiar with RBN? Am I missing something? I'm not sure what that stands for.
Right Wing Banter Network. I have no idea what the fuck that stands for. I have no idea. RBM. I was thinking like Ruth Bader Network. I have no idea. These are the things that came to my mind first. Not that we give a shit what your other favorite programming is. Matt also like God 81. We're happy that you're a fan of the Vanguard, digging the show. As they say. So yeah, really appreciate that and appreciate the $5. Hope you're doing good.
He's talking about Revolutionary Blackout Network.
Oh, fuck us. We're just so not like if you would have called it FHL, it would have been like, oh, that makes sense. But now I'm like just such an idiot. I'm like, fuck, I can't even think about that. Yep. All right. Well, now we're all caught up and we're ready to start using the correct updated nomenclature to define our homies podcasts.
Yeah, that is not the preferred nomenclature, man. But yeah, let's watch the rest of this. There's like a minute more of embarrassment, of cringe. So let's take a look.
Voting for the Biff deal now, in hindsight, given it's now leverage that you house. We're talking about the Senate, where you don't control Joe Manchin. That's the problem. Joe Biden doesn't control Joe Manchin, and the leverage that you had, your critics would argue, was lost when you voted for Biff. I just wonder, do you regret voting for the Biff deal now, in hindsight, given it's now months later, and Joe Manchin is nowhere closer to signing off on $1.75 trillion?
No, I don't regret it because I think our leverage was at the maximum point. And had we not done that, I think we would have actually lost even more on Build Back Better. I think we would have lost votes on it. I think it would have made it very difficult to ever pass it. So I think what you have to do in these moments is you have to try and go for maximum leverage. And I think that's exactly what the Progressive Caucus did. And I believe that we're going to get it passed. Now, is it going to be every single day Joe Manchin saying something else that somebody hangs their hat on and says, this means you're not going to get it done? Unfortunately, yes, that's who Senator Manchin is. I mean, he has never made a secret of the fact that he doesn't, I think he is not the person who crafted this bill. It's not his number one priority, but he made a commitment to the president. And I believe we have to get it done, and we will get it done.
He will change his mind, you say. I hope we can get you back on the show when he does and when that bill passes. It's a huge bill. I've made my views very clear about what an important bill it is on this.
Yeah, so this is pretty fucking crazy. And again, it maddens me how these Democrats, these supposed lefty Democrats, even they refuse to just acknowledge Joe Manchin's corruption. Like, why are you pretending as if his objection to this legislation or any progressive legislation is like on principle, as if like, oh, well, he's a hard man to please and he's just looking out for his constituents in West Virginia. But like, no, just be honest about his priorities and where they come from and what incentives he serves. It's so obvious. The dude's a literal like coal baron in West Virginia. The dude has all of these conflicts of interest. It's the easiest target ever to point out and embarrass him and call him an enemy of the people and say that he single-handedly is obstructing this legislation because of his conflicts of interest and ties to industry. It's so obvious and easy to do that, but even the likes of Premier Jayapal and Ro Khanna, the Congress people that are supposed to be lefties, they refuse to do that. They keep apologizing for him and defending him and acting like this is just some like cordial difference in political outlook or or viewpoint. It's absolute insanity, and it blows my mind that the left flank in Congress right now, and that includes the Squad and AOC and all of them, and Bernie Sanders himself. They refuse to see their political enemies in an actual antagonistic light. Like, they refuse to actually approach them as if they are antagonists, as if they are obstructionists, which they are. And if you actually cared about these policies and these were actually your priorities, then you would be fighting a little bit goddamn harder against your antagonists, against the people that are obstructing these policies from passing.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the MO, right? That's the rotating villain kind of game style, that they don't want to actually make a big show of it. They don't want to disrupt the feathers. They'll just say, oh, it's this person and we politically disagree with them and shame on them and whatever. But they're not going to actually go in there and talk about how like the most you're going to get is what's happening right now, where AOC is tweeting about how Biden has lots of tools at his disposal and we need to be using all of them. And I was like, okay, that doesn't have any teeth to it. You're not actually making anybody's life harder. You're not keeping them going home from going home on Christmas. You're not fucking going on, MSNBC on Mehdi Hasan's show, which I'm sure he'd be happy to host somebody like AOC or Ilhan Omar to talk about how unconscionable it is that Joe Biden's not going to West Virginia and campaigning for the Build Back Better bill, that he's letting himself be pushed around by one fucking senator, which is holding up a presidency defining piece of legislation for him. And look, I'm not even that big of a fan of the Build Back Better legislation. It was completely gutted. It's like a fool's bill at this point. It's just as good as for the corporations, probably better for the corporation, way better for the corporations than it is for any of the people that it's actually, going to provide any kind of pittance of assistance to. But I'm just saying, if that's like, if they were actually doing real political calculation, if they were actually interested in winning. But even David Sirota, not exactly a political pessimist, was out here talking about how the Democrats are trying to lose. He literally wrote a piece that they published in the Daily Poster called "The Democrats Are Trying to Lose." And I feel like if we're all there now, because it's so fucking obvious that you don't have to be somebody that is like, a doomer or a fucking nihilist to be like, the Democrats aren't trying. You just have to be looking at the fucking objective reality and understand that you cannot take somebody that's talking to you, like for me, Jayapal was just talking to Mehdi Hasan and, the rest of America, by extension. You can't listen to somebody that's talking like that and take them seriously and feel like they actually have your interest at heart. They're not fighting. It's so fucking obvious. They're just, as you said, Gavin, gaslighting.
Yeah, and straight up defending Biden and Manchin. Like, again, Jayapal sounded like a goddamn press secretary there, not the left flank of the Democratic Party, the party in power that controls the Congress and the Senate. That was no left flank voice. That was a press secretary running defense for Joe Biden's inability to whip votes and Joe Manchin's absolute corruption, which prevents him from doing the right thing. And yeah, at this point, the bill is barely worth passing. But at one point, it was worth passing. They let Joe Manchin systematically destroy the bill before then turning around and pissing all over them anyway. So it's totally insane what has happened here. And as I said, Jayapal's excuses at this point are wearing so thin that lefties across the spectrum are calling this out. Usually we have a pretty solid faction of defenders of the Squad, defenders of the Progressive Caucus. They're gonna give these people credit almost no matter what. They can basically do no wrong. But even some of these folks are turning on Jayapal now. This tweet here, of course, describes this interview, says or gives this quote: "Had we not passed the infrastructure bill, that would have been the day the senator said BBB is done. We still would have ended up in the same place." And she says she doesn't regret coupling the bill from Build Back Better, which of course was the sacrifice of their leverage. Brianna Joy Gray quote tweeted, says, cool. But what I thought was really interesting was that even some of the, other lefties like David Dole, the boutique left, as some people like to say,
the
even
neo-progs.
Yeah, exactly. They're getting in on this too. And, straight up in no uncertain terms, calling Jayapal out as a clown. Again, David Dole here, one of the more milquetoast lefties on YouTube, says, LOL, she needs to step out of that leadership position. He rarely criticizes the Squad. He'll go out of his way to not have to criticize the Squad. So, this is meaningful. She fucked up that bad. Here's Cenk Uygur, says, this is literally insane. How could a strategy that completely failed be exactly the right strategy unless she wanted it to fail? Rep Jayapal, did you want the bill to fail, or was your strategy wrong? And he's 100% right there. Absolutely 100% correct. humanist report. She writes excellent legislation, but she should really not be the leader of the CPC. And I think that's fair. Yeah, she wrote Medicare for All. Clearly, she has experience as a legislator, but as the leader of the left flank, absolutely the fuck not. She has proven she has no place being in that position. And one more from Anna Kasparian. Imagine the audacity to tweet this after giving all your leverage away after helping Dems pass their corporate handout infrastructure bill. Looking forward to all the tolls that come along with Congress agreeing to privatize more public infrastructure. And 100%, she's absolutely right there as well. So yeah, it's pretty funny that all these people that traditionally, usually, defend the squad more or less, even this is too far. They're like, this is too much. I'm fed up. This is absolute insanity. Tired of being gaslit, etc.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's kind of like I said, it's kind of impossible to not come around to this at this point. She's been swallowed up by the swamp in an intense fucking way, guys. Like this is, like she's merged from the swamp, officially a swamp monster. She showers off, and it's just more swamp. She's like Joe Biden, Nancy Pelosi light now. I'm just going to run simp for whoever's in power, vote blue no matter who. And at that point, you're completely useless to any working class person that's serious about getting change, because you're just going to fucking lie to them, feed them bullshit. And you're no different than that's very Obama behavior, right? Very Obama behavior. It's like, I already lived through that shit once. Okay. I'm not trying to do it again. I'm certainly not going to do it with any illusions this time. Okay. You know what I mean? So yeah, she needs to get the fuck out of our way. We've said it 10 million times. Shama Sawant, if she thinks she is interested in it at all, I think is a real serious primary threat to Pramila Jayapal. But at the same time, it's like, they're going to throw like $100 million into that race in opposition. So it's just like, I don't even know. You could spend a lot of money in mutual aid and, at the local level and shit like that on what it would cost to do that. That's certainly an argument that I'm sure that, Shama would weigh before entering the ground or running if she did. But yeah, I mean, the Democrats are essentially doing nothing. They are running the most tragically terrible campaign possible, and the only reason that she's saying now that she's happy that they did split the legislation is so that in about 3 months, when they get back from their extremely long fucking Christmas vacation, it's not actually 3 months, but it fucking feels like it before anybody gets to work again, and they'll just start saying we already passed the infrastructure bill. I guarantee you that's what the fuck is coming. BIF is gonna become the new synonymous infrastructure bill. The bipartisan infrastructure bill. We are bipartisan administration. The bipartisan administration only does things that are bipartisan, and if you want more bipartisanship, then you should vote for Democrats because we're bipartisan. Basically, if you want but that never works, because if people want Republicans, if they want people to govern like Republicans, they'll fucking vote for a Republican instead. But this is the strategy that they're going into, and it's a complete failure. And I think a lot of people will correctly point out that they just don't like being in power because it's harder for them to fundraise and they can't do anything, and they're completely ineffectual.
Yeah, absolutely. Big shout out to Cookie Monster. We got the Cookie Monster in the chat right now. He says, did you guys cover Vosh's I hope Assange dies in a CIA Black Ops site take? I don't think we actually did a segment on that, but I did watch that video. It was at the beginning of a video clip he put out where he was actually going after breaking points, which was a little bit interesting. But it started off with him basically being like, yeah, LOL, I hope Assange dies in a CIA Black Ops site, just to trigger the Jimmy Dore fans, essentially, which was totally disgusting and typical Vosh, So, yeah, fuck that dude. Anyway.
Yeah, I do think it's funny that he loves to go after breaking points and loves to try and cuddle up with Kyle Kalinske now. Apparently, it's such an interesting game that he's playing.
Yeah, I totally agree. But thanks for the $5, Cookie Monster. Really appreciate that, man. Anyway, I guess we can move on to this Zizek interview on Bad Faith. We can go over this, react to some of it. Zizek recently, Slavoj Zizek, of course, the lefty philosopher and what would you call him, theorist or something?
Yeah, and I think it's Slavoj. I don't think you pronounce the J.
How was I saying it? Slavov?
You said Slavoj, and I don't think you pronounced the J.
Slavoj Zizek, however the fuck you pronounce his name, recently went on the Bad Faith podcast with Brianna Joy Gray, which I always enjoy watching, of course. And yeah, they had an interesting conversation, a pretty wide-ranging conversation. We're probably going to react to the first 10 minutes or so of this. But yeah, I was kind of expecting more of a fiery, condemnation of the Biden administration and of the neoliberal bent to the Democratic Party right now and its leadership. But I don't know. It wasn't quite what I was expecting. We'll check this out. And, I think he says a lot of reasonable things. Of course, he's a smart guy. But I'd definitely be interested in hearing your guys' opinion on this too, chat. It's definitely, maybe a slightly different tone from Zizek than, again, I would expect, given just how unimpressive the Biden administration has been thus far. But we'll give it a fair shake and take a look at the first 10 minutes or so of this, and we can chat afterwards. But yeah, definitely, good conversation. Shout out to Brianna Joy Gray for always having lively discussions with interesting lefty voices on the Bad Faith program. One of the best podcasts, of course. But yeah, let's check this out.
Yeah, and you can tell, honestly, that Brianna Joy Gray is also a little bit surprised by his demeanor. But we'll cue this up. Oh, good. I can't get it to stop now. 1 second. There we go.
When we last spoke, it was in the middle of the left's fight over this idea of force the vote. And while some people are going to cringe that I am, still talking about it a year later, the reason why so many on the left were so viscerally committed to this was because it was one of the few moments where a very small number of House members could actually exert sincere power, not just the kind of begging Biden to do something, but the ability to say, I'm going to withhold something that the party wants and needs, Nancy Pelosi speakership, over some really hardcore concessions that Nancy Pelosi has in her personal power to extend, whether it's a vote on Medicare for all, whether it's certain committee appointments that they crowed were going to come because of playing nice, begging didn't actually get them the results that they claimed playing nice was going to get. So now we have kind of proof positive. A lot of us at that moment were like, we're going to be disappointed, because that was in some ways the lowest the stakes were ever going to be in terms of the trade-off between being able to give things to your constituents, do things for your constituents, and risking it for something bigger, right? The only downside is Nancy Pelosi isn't Speaker of the House. Who cares? So what, right? It's not like, okay, I hold up the Build Back Better bill and people don't get, $2,000 checks, or they don't get child tax credits, or whatever it is, right? At this point, the risks were so low, and the progressives' unwillingness to do it really was a bad omen for a lot of people on the left. And over the course of the last year, it feels, and I take no joy in this, but it feels like we were proven aggressively right. And so I want to hear what your view of this is, because my concern is that going into midterms, going into 2024, all of this institutional memory of how right the left was at the very beginning, or at least some parts of the left were at the very beginning, are going to go out the window. And we're going to get a lot of thought leaders who command a lot of respect, including Professor Chomsky, saying again, despite all of the evidence that Joe Biden hasn't done what was necessary to address the climate crisis and myriad other crises, that Trump is worse. With the lesser of two evils, you gotta fall in line. How do we break out of that dynamic?
I don't know, but again, that's the big question. But what I will tell you my conclusion. But I still think, even if we skeptics were proven right, it was nonetheless not a mistake to give Biden and people around him a chance. Because now nobody can accuse us of being that kind of dogmatic sectarian leftist who just comfortably, like you and me, with all the books and wait for the big revolution, but just denounce all proposals. No, we acted honestly. We played an extremely, we who said, okay, allow Biden, if he can, to do something good. We gave him a chance. And as you beautifully said, we are not now enthusiastic that we were proven right, that Democrats didn't, but it's very important if we want in the long term to achieve, I don't know what, anything, that we are not perceived as these usual academic radicals who are very quick to denounce every measure as a compromise. No, we should, now this will shock you. You know that I like this almost perverse line, but
Second. I just want to unpack what he says right there, because this is one of the first times I know I recall I have a serious disagreement with Zizek and his framing right here, and I just want to talk about it because I'd be interested to hear what you think about this framing, Gavin, and what the chat thinks about this. Also, just as we're all leftists, and I feel like we all admire Zizek, and kind of in a way that over time you start to change all of your intellectual heroes, and not that whatever, right? But this is an interesting framing from a guy that's typically a real radical leftist, because what he's saying is essentially that if we don't kind of go along to get along with Joe Biden, and we don't kind of accept, the rationale of what he's providing in the short term, then we're all just going to be written off as like hysterics and fucking radicals and academics and all that kind of shit. And my rebuttal to that would be, if I could, magically get in here, I would say, Zizek, didn't we already prove that if you look at the 2016 election, and you can see that, more of the Bernie Sanders crowd, the percentage of the people who voted for Bernie Sanders in the primary actually showed up to vote for Hillary Clinton in 2016 than Hillary Clinton primary supporters showed up to vote for Obama in 2008, right? So that would, to me, show as clear as day, based off of any kind of factual evidence from as recently as 5 years ago, that the left flank that supported Bernie Sanders already did that in 2016. And then, we did indulge. Okay, Hillary can get it done. Let's try this way. Didn't work out, did it? So why are we going to try that exact same method again? Yes, he got into power, but he's still just as toothless, just as uninspiring, and just as unwilling to act as Hillary Clinton would have been had she gotten into office. Or though likely she may have been up to more bad shit because she was a little bit more competent. But either way, you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, no, it actually kind of blows my mind, with all due respect to Zizek, how after, living a longer life than I have, having seen this cycle repeat over and over again, that he's still willing to embrace this strategy of just like, yeah, we kind of got to, go along to get along and accept what we can and try to, work with the establishment to get some minor concessions. It blows my mind that his approach wouldn't be, we have to be more hardcore. We have to be more of a left flank. We have to at least threaten their power in some sort of substantive way in order to actually force real concessions to happen. They're not going to concede anything if they don't actually feel the heat, if they don't actually feel a threat from their left flank. If the left flank doesn't even feel like a left flank, then of course they're going to be disregarded and discarded when it's convenient, which is right after the election happens. Of course, that always is what happens. So yeah, it does kind of blow my mind here that he's kind of, saying like, oh, well, we were right to just embrace Biden and not be too hard on him, not question him too much or demand too much out of him, because we can't be seen as radicals. We can't be seen as unreasonable people that refuse to compromise. But in my opinion, I'd much rather be seen as people that refuse to compromise on certain issues, than people that won't accept anything at all. So yeah, I mean, I'm willing to compromise on some things, but I'm also willing to draw some lines, to make some litmus tests, to draw some actual hard lines and say, no, without these policies, this does not stand. And it is a little bit weird that he's refusing to take hardline stances on that kind of stuff. Well, and advocating for a less aggressive approach, maybe, that doesn't really threaten power as much. But again, maybe that's just a difference. We'll listen to some more of this.
And really quickly, just the expression that's on Brianna Joy's face is exactly the expression that I'm internalizing right now as he's saying this. I can feel what she's feeling as she's listening to him. Like, what the fuck? I had a very similar experience when we interviewed Noam Chomsky.
Yeah, and it seems like a lot of the great, lefty thinkers, even Richard Wolff, will sometimes kind of go down this path, and he'll be like, well, we still need to see what AOC can do and stuff like that. It's like at some point you have to admit that something's not working and maybe consider another strategy. AOC is not going to get us anywhere, guys. We need to move on from that. We need to think of something else, something better and more effectual to get the results that we do need. And I wish that sometimes there's a little bit more honesty in that regard. But again, with all due respect to Zizek, let's give him a little bit more time to explain himself.
I think I'm correct. In this crazy situation in which we are today, we are the moderate, common sense realists. The measures, we should insist on this. Those in power are playing with our fate.
Yes,
they are crazy.
That's true. That's true. But it is also true.
Bothers you, strike back.
Regardless of how measured we are in our early critiques, regardless of how much we frame the issues as we want Joe Biden just to fill his campaign promises. I'm not rooting against Biden, right? That's the posture that I took. I'm not voting for Biden to fail. I'm rooting for him to succeed. I'm warning him as what's going to happen down the pike. Regardless of the moderation of my own tone, I am still, and people who took this approach are still characterized as radicals. And at the same time, I would argue the fact that no one out there is speaking more radically and truthfully about what's going on and willing to say this is actually corruption afoot, that Joe Biden, of course, is not going to do the right thing. He hired Steve Ricchetti, a former oil lobbyist, as his senior advisor. He's got Cedric Richardson from the most polluted district in America as a senior advisor. We know what this game is. He told him that, he said in the leaked meeting to a bunch of donors, nothing would fundamentally change. Like, the fact that there were that level of tone, that level of analysis wasn't a bigger part of the conversation, enabled the corporate media to get away for the last 10 months with pretending like Biden was going to be something he wasn't. And only now people are reaching out to me for interviews talking about, oh, well, what could he do now? What should the left say? I'm like, where were you 6 months ago when you were writing screeds about how Biden was going to be the next FDR and casting people like myself as completely unreasonable, disgruntled Bernie bros?
I just want to break in here real quick and mention how correct Brianna is there in her approach here, which is to consider Joe Biden as essentially an enemy of the people. Look at who he's staffed up with. Look at who he's hired. Look at what interest he is actively representing while being president of the United States. We can't act like this is someone that we can work with who maybe just has a few political disagreements with us as a movement. No, he is the enemy of this progressive lefty socialist movement, whatever you want to call it. We have to recognize our enemies where they are. And yeah, is Joe Biden maybe like 5 or 10% less of an enemy than Trump? Sure, I'll grant you that. That doesn't make him not an enemy. Just because he's less bad than the boogeyman himself doesn't mean that he's not worth taking on and taking an aggressive stance against, an aggressive left flank populist stance against. And it's just crazy that like Brianna Joy Gray is one of the only people seemingly in the media that will really like recognize that and reckon with it accordingly. So many people just want to act like, give these mealy-mouthed defenses of Joe Biden's neoliberalism and refuse to call it out. And it's just crazy how like cucked and declawed the progressive left movement has become under Joe Biden's presidency. The guy that we were all calling out, during the primary as the worst of the worst, the representation of stagnation and the embrace of the status quo. Now we treat him with kids' gloves. What the fuck is going on? This guy is worse than we even expected.
Yeah, he's been a complete and utter embarrassment. He's not even done the few pitiful fucking things that you could have expected him to do without any help from Congress, even though he had Congress. He hasn't done any executive orders. His diplomacy has been garbage. He hasn't, shuttered our support for Saudi Arabia. He hasn't, patched up any of our relationships with countries like Iran. Everything across the board has been a complete failure. He's been worse on climate than any of us could have possibly dreamed, I think. All of these kinds of things are true. And so it's honestly, it's baffling to me to see Zizek come out here and simp for the guy and say that we should all just, give him a fucking chance and that he hasn't been in office that long. It's like, what the fuck do you mean? He's been in office for a fucking year now. The 1 year where he could have done anything, and it's over now. And we didn't get like fucking 10% of what he promised us. And we got a horseshit handout to big business with the bipartisan infrastructure bill. But other than that, it was complete dog shit. So anyway.
Yeah, and that's probably a good place to wrap up our stream for today. We can go ahead and make our announcement, I guess, which is that starting today, we're going to be doing our official weekly podcast episodes on CALLIN, which is an audio podcast platform, currently only available on iPhones, although there is an Android and PC version that is being rolled out in the near future. So if you guys don't have an iPhone, it's all good. Just sit tight for the next couple months or so. But if you do have an iPhone, then go ahead and download the CALLIN app. The link is in the description to our specific show if you'd like to tune in. And just a little bit later today, we're going to be going live there to continue the conversation. We have some more news to discuss. And the cool thing about CALLIN, if you guys aren't aware, is that you can call in, as the name would suggest. All you have to do is, be listening and click the button to call in, and you'll be queued up and we can talk to you. So if you have an agreement or disagreement with us, if you want to just shoot the shit, talk about some politics, bounce some ideas off of us, etc., then that would be awesome. We would love to engage with you guys. And one of the big reasons we're excited about this new venture for the podcast is that it will give us that opportunity to engage with you guys, the listeners, the viewers, our audience whose opinions we really respect and can't wait to engage with ourselves. So again, that link's in the description if you guys want to check it out and get that app if you haven't already. It's super easy to use. It doesn't cost any money. It's not like some really complex thing or whatever. It's super easy to use, very user friendly. So I'm really excited about this. I'm really excited to grow our presence on CALLIN and talk to some fans, talk to some people that probably hate our guts too. It's going to be a good time. So yeah, that's our announcement. And the link is in the description, like I said.
Yeah, just a few more things to add about CALLIN. Look, guys, one of the things we talk about all the time is how we need to diversify our space in order to, combat censorship. And, we've talked to the guys at CALLIN's. We've had multiple meetings with them. And, we've made it clear that we'll never censor ourselves for the platform. And they've made it clear that they would never ask us to. And that's something that we really value. And of course, we would have never joined a new platform that didn't support free speech. And, there's obviously a range of voices on there, from Brianna Joy Gray, who we just discussed on this episode, to Matt Taibbi, to Glenn Greenwald, to many others. And it's a new interesting platform where you can listen to us talk. You don't have to look at our ugly fucking faces. You can fucking just tune in, actually retort to us. We'll get to have a real dialogue. For some of our listeners that might have been into that back in the day, we're really going to try and replicate like an old talk radio kind of call-in vibe from that sort of thing. And so, if you want to stick it to YouTube after they've been fucking everybody, this is a really good way to get off of that. Gavin and I fucking hate YouTube for as much as we make our content on it. So we're always interested in getting these new kinds of ideas off the ground. So check us out on Callin and see if you guys like it. We'd really appreciate the support on the new platform.
Yeah, absolutely. And another announcement that we wanted to discuss at the end of today's stream is that we're going to be doing an exclusive hangout session every month for our patron community on Call-In. So if you want to join our patron community, then you can be a part of that exclusive hangout session, which will happen on a monthly basis. And that's in addition to all the perks we already offer our patrons, of course, which you can find out more about at patreon.com/the Vanguard channel. One of which obviously is the shout out on our shout out screen, as you see now. If you want to place up here, hit up that link, join the community, support the show. But another one of the cool benefits is going to be that hangout session that we're going to be doing on the Call-In app. And that's going to be exclusive to our patron community. So if you're a patron, you'll be sent a link every month and you can join that. And it won't be open to the masses. It'll just be kind of an exclusive Vanguard party. Super excited for that too. Really excited to get that off the ground and further connect with our patrons. So yeah, just a huge shout out to the patrons. Thanks for making the show making the show possible. Really appreciate that, guys. And we'll see you later.